What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we're starting with a bang today. It's our pleasure to welcome to the show right off the top Commanders wide receiver, Dyami Brown, fresh off a touchdown on Sunday, on pace for career highs all over the place this season. Dyami, appreciate your time on a busy day, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm good, and I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. Obviously, it's a big week. There's all this hype from people like me and people that are doing shows like I do, and all the fans are really excited. Dan talked about yesterday, DQ, your head coach, of course, talked about how you guys are just process-oriented and trying to keep the focus in the building. Has it felt like that around the building, or knowing the quality of opponent this week, is there just, 5% or whatever it is more juice?
Oh, man, for us, we always want to stay focused on the task that's at hand. We don't want to make anything too big of what's going on, so we don't want to hype ourselves up to psych us out of anything. We just want to stay focused and stay on that grind.
For sure. And I know it's always hard to be reflective in the middle of stuff, but I know you've put in a ton of work the past bunch of off seasons, something that you chronicled on YouTube. I did kind of chuckle. You did a bunch of episodes in certain off seasons. This season, you're just like, here's everything I did. I'm putting in an hour, one video, bang. As a content creator, lots of respect for that, Dyami, first of all. Second of all, to see the work pay off in a different way, because what's it been like for you to be more involved as a pass catcher? You've been a great blocker. You've done all this other stuff, great on special teams. But for that offensive part of your game to come through as a wide receiver, what's that meant to you so far this season?
Oh, man, it means a lot, just to be able to do the things that I do in order for us, to help us contribute to that win. I think a lot of times, things can get kind of frustrating or anything, but at the end of the day, I know the work that I put in, and then I know what I can do as far as the game goes as well. So for me, I just want to go out there and help the team do the best that we can do.
For a wide receiver who's asked to do a lot of dirty work, I don't have a better way to ask it other than how much easier is it when also you see the ball a little bit more to just stay engaged in the game? If you're playing pickup basketball and you're just like, hey, can I shoot it every once in a while? Like, if you ask me to set screens, you can do all that kind of stuff. Not that you're not a great team guy, just like, does it make going to work a little bit more fun?
Oh, yeah, it definitely makes it fun. And, I want everybody to do good. At the end of the day, for me, just to get those few touches, just to show what I can do, it means a lot for me, just to build a confidence thing as well. But I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of us can do good in this offense and with this team. So I think at the end of the day, all we have to do is continue to do what we do, and we turn out victorious.
Dyami Brown with us here on the Hoffman Show. I know DQ has talked about OZ as a guy in your room who is just an incredible cheerleader for everybody else. Obviously, he's been he's one of those guys who's helping you on the field as well. What's it been like to have Olamide specifically in the room and that veteran presence that he's brought and kind of the energy he brings to the offense and specifically the wide receiver room?
Oh, man, I love OZ, and he brings a lot of energy. It's like, man, he's almost like a bad little kid out there. He'll jump off the tree if he want to. but that's the energy that we need, because at the end of the day, any help that anybody can use, and as far as his game and the things that he can do, can come out the backfield or play a wide out, anything, any small little detail things that all of us can add to our game can help, and it's very beneficial.
I was going to ask, is there a good example that you can give us, Dyami, a story about how one of the other receivers in the room, or maybe a guy like Zach out of the tight end room, has helped you? Because you all have some overlapping skill sets, but you all have kind of one thing that's a little bit different from everybody else, whether it's Luke, OZ, Terry, Noah, on down the list. Is there something that you've pulled from someone else's game that you could share with us?
Oh, man, I think with OZ, the run after catch is something that I definitely learned from him. It's kind of weird when those little slot guys they know how to move a little bit. Man, look, I want to move like that too. But things like that. Then with Terry, the professionalism that he has, it means a lot, and it's kind of good for me as well too, because you want to attack the day like that. At the end of the day, and it's different ways to get better. And you can learn from each and every guy that's in that room.
So I actually was very curious to ask you about this once we knew you were coming on, and I heard something that Dan said yesterday, which he said, you guys are working on breaking tackles, which to me it feels like something from the outside. It's like, you either got it or you don't. Like, some guys are really good at it. They know how to move. Right. They know how to shake. How do you, if you can share with us, like, how do you learn at the NFL level how to break tackles? I know that's such a simple question, but it's something that I never really thought about you guys drilling. It's just kind of like, hey, you drill the routes, you drill all this. How do you work on breaking tackles at the NFL level?
Man, I just think I want to say you're actually learning how to break a tackle. I just think you go through, you go through a different process of learning how to break tackles. I think it's just when you see a defense pursue, it's like, okay, what can I do to make a guy miss? Can I use a stiff arm? Can I juke? Can I just stick or something like that? Things like that, because you're not just gonna be able to, okay, boom, I'm gonna just break this tackle right here. Nah, you have to go through that process, and you really have to do it every day, and it has to be like a mental thing, like a repetition thing.
So it's much more of like sharpening the skills every single day that you already have versus like, we're going to teach you how to do whatever. And it's part like the pursuit angles and things like that. So it's kind of making something that feels very natural, technical in a way.
Right. Because then it all just depends on what you have in your bag. A lot of guys, I'm about to juke, or some guys like to run over. Some guys don't run people over, so they like to juke. It's different ways to break a tackle in this league.
And if you're a white tight end, you're morally obligated to try to leap over somebody once a year. Is that like to yank off and Zach?
Yeah. Yeah, one leap in the truck. That's it.
that's the entire white tight end toolkit. Dyami Brown's with us here on the Hoffman Show. And for you have been really effective this year on some of the screens as a screen runner. Is that something that you've always felt that you are good at? Because it's something we haven't seen a ton from you. Or is that something that in this offense that you've learned how to do it and then they realize like, oh, this guy's good at this and they're giving you a few more of those opportunities?
Man, I think I haven't ran a screen in a long time. This year might have been like the first year I had a couple of screens, but for me it was just just do what I can do with this opportunity that is given. And it wasn't learning how to run a screen. It was, whatever. I don't care how I get this ball. If it has to be a screen, I'm gonna try to make something happen with it.
No, I hear you, man. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about your quarterback. Any wide receiver, we're always going to ask about the quarterback when he's the number 2 pick in the draft and playing as well as he is. You know the questions are coming. But it seems like everyone's pretty excited to talk about Jaden. When in the offseason did you know? Because, like, obviously people know you were at Carolina with Sam. Like, you've had good relationships with him and with some of the other quarterbacks here. So this is not meant to disparage any of those guys at all. But when in the offseason did you be like, this cat's different? There's something about him that I have not seen before since I've been in Washington.
Man, the first couple of days of practice, and you saw his aura early on, and his poise and his confidence early on, and things like that. It kind of like as a rookie, you don't really see it from many quarterbacks just because of the learning aspect. They're trying to learn and make sure that they get everything down, or they don't want to make any mistakes. But for him, he just came out relaxed, and he just was being him. And the first couple of days, I just knew it. And I had said it from the beginning, like, man, we're going to be a good team with this guy.
And so far, so good. 4-1. Last minute here with Dyami Brown on the Hoffman Show. Kliff, we've obviously heard a lot about him and his coaching style and the walkthroughs and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious how different it's been for you with Bobby this year, because he was here last year. Your receiver coach, Bobby Ingram, for the audience who may not know who I'm talking about. What's been different for Bobby this year under Kliff compared to being under Bobby in a different system and a different organization last year?
I'll say Bobby as a person, he really been the same. He's always been, honest with us and everything. He's been helping us develop. So he'll, put us through things that we would need, like for the game plan and stuff like that. But I think this year, the biggest difference is just having that time to connect with us a little bit more, as far as like how meetings and stuff was going. Like last year, we walked through, but we didn't have too many walkthroughs and stuff like that. And then we didn't have too much meeting time separate. So I think that would be the biggest difference, just him connecting with us and being able to talk and, really learn from him, since he's been in the game, he's been in his league for a long time. So just him being able to, connect with us a little bit more, I think that's the biggest difference.
For sure. And speaking of meetings, you got to run to some. Really appreciate the time, Dyami, and let's do it again later on in the season. Best of luck this weekend.
All right. Thank you.
That is Dyami Brown with us, everybody, here on the Hoffman Show. Wow. He was Anthony. What a start. What a bang. Dyami, excellent talker. Welcome back anytime.
Nah, Dyami, he's super cool. Even when I got on the phone with him, I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be a good interview.
Yeah, he's a guy that like doesn't mind doing the media stuff. I think especially now. Like I was looking at it earlier. I thought about asking him some version of this of like, Dyami, do you realize that you are one long touchdown pass away from a career high in receiving yards?
Dang, he probably did now. Or, nah, maybe he does now.
He's got 94 on the season. His career high is 168.
Oh, wow.
So where's my phone calculator situation?
Trying to do math. 74.
168 minus, no, that's the divided side. Minus, no, not back. Minus, hitting wrong buttons. You're telling me it's 74?
Yes.
Would you look at that? That's a good job, Anthony.
Hey, look, I like numbers, man.
So if he catches a 75-yard touchdown on Sunday, he'd have a career high in receiving yards in 6 games.
Speaking into existence, man.
Dyami Brown's going to have a 75-yard touchdown pass on Sunday. And on that pass, if it's the second play of the game, play action shot, let's fire away. That will be a career high in receiving yards for Dyami Brown. I'd also like to talk to the media more if I was having that kind of season.
Yeah.
But it really is like these guys really enjoy going to work. They really enjoy cheering for each other. Like they just want to see each other win because like they have understood the fundamental part of being a part of any team, which is like when we all win, right? It's not just football. That's everything. Like when you win, my teammate wins, I win. How can I help you win? Because then we all win together in a literal sense on a scoreboard, but also like Dyami is going to be a free agent after this offseason. You don't think he's going to make more money now based off what he's done this year compared to what he would have done another year under the previous 3 years systems? Of course he's going to make more money. Team wins, everybody wins. It's the old Super Bowl disease that Bill Walsh and Bill Parcells and all those guys used to talk about. Yeah, it's really great to win, but then everybody gets more expensive because everyone's like, oh, I'm great. I'm the reason why we won. Or someone else thinks I'm a reason why we won. So they're going to pay me more. You got to replace them. But then again, like when you have the kind of success that this team is, and when you have the environment this team is, if it's close between here and somewhere else, Dyami's going to want to come back here. Anyone else is going to want to come back here. And that's a beautiful thing that they built out in Ashburn. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it is a Thursday, which means you will hear from both Joe Whitt Jr. and Kliff Kingsbury throughout the show. The Commanders coordinators having their media avails in Ashburn a little bit earlier today. Also coming up, our visit with Dan Pizzuta, as usual on a Thursday. DP going to join us at 5 o'clock today for Not My Beat. And he has a new quarterback, number 1 in his weekly quarterback rankings. Last week, he preached patience. This week, you got to see how high Jaden Daniels wound up in his rankings. Also, our pick 6 at 6. And we got one non-football thing we got to talk about at the end of the show at 6:30. So, locked, loaded, ready to go on a Thursday here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. We do this daily, he said, 4 to 7 p.m. each and every day, talking Commanders and everything else in the DC sports universe and beyond. Make sure that you check us out. If you're new to the show, maybe finding us after the Dyami Brown interview. We're on the radio at the Team 980. That's 980 AM, 1067 HD2 FM. The Odyssey app is where you can listen to us live audio. And, of course, daily at the Team 980 on YouTube. We also have a podcast. We cut up clips that post on the Team 980 and at Craig Hoffman on YouTube. So all the places that you can find us each and every day. We, on Thursdays, focus on the game through the lens of each coordinator. Why? Because they talk, and thus we know what they think about the game. And for Kliff Kingsbury, he is following in the footsteps of some other folks that actually kind of in a weird way followed in his footsteps from college coordinator or college coach into the NFL. Few have been as good as Todd Monken have been so far, the Ravens offensive coordinator. And on the heels of the conversation that we had with Ben Solak yesterday from ESPN about Kliff running a college offense, which Ben very astutely pointed out is not something that he meant as a dig, unlike maybe Cam Taylor-Britt. And you know, I don't even think, honestly, Cam Taylor-Britt, the Bengals corner, meant it as a dig. But when Ben says it, he says, this is actually something I mean to just clarify stylistically choices that are made that most NFL coordinators won't. I'm not actually ascribing it good or bad. But a guy like Monken has made that change as well. Was most recently in college at the University of Georgia. Ultimately gets the job with the Ravens last year, and has an outstanding first season where Lamar Jackson wins the MVP. Offense looks fantastic again this year in long stretches, including the entirety of last week's game. So Kliff did talk to Todd Monken about wanting to come to Washington and everything that goes into making that transition to be an OC at the pro level. And he was asked today about what he took from said conversation.
He took over at Oklahoma State when Dana Holgorsen left there. So I followed him, and just the way he's been able to adapt his personnel and maximize his personnel. He's been successful everywhere he's been, and I was just picking his brain. He's made that transition a couple times from college and back, and just this time around, they had such success last year, running that style with Lamar of offense, what he liked, what he didn't like, what he would have done differently, bringing it in. And so we just had a good conversation. I appreciate him and what he's done there and everywhere else, and just watching it this year with how he's brought Henry in and adapted to that and adjusted the scheme to really maximize who they are this year. It's incredible. I mean, he's one of the best offensive minds in football, and so it'll be a huge challenge for him.
I think that one of the things that I appreciate about great coordinators is they have a set of principles, and then they adapt their methods. Principles are the things that you just believe, hey, we must do this. We're trying to accomplish this thing. We're trying to get the ball vertically down the field. We have to create horizontal space. We have to make sure that we have one matchup, two matchups, whatever it is, at all times in our favor. And then the methods are, okay, well, let's say we must always have two matchups in our favor. We have to make sure that if the defense is playing man, we have two guys that we like at all times. So how do we accomplish that? It might be with personnel. Hey, with our personnel, we're going to sign 4 stud wide receivers, or we're going to make sure we're 4 deep at wide receiver. That way, if we can get our wide receiver 4 on their cornerback 4 and they're playing dime, then we love that matchup. Okay, great. Or we know they don't switch their corners inside, outside. They're not going to travel. So can we get our number 1 wide receiver on their slot corner? Or we know if we go heavy personnel, we're going to get matched with their heavy personnel, and we're going to have our number 2 tight end, who is actually a number 2 tight end because he's not that good of a blocker, but he's a great pass catcher, great route runner, on a linebacker. And that's a great matchup for us. A running back on a linebacker, that's a great matchup for us. So whatever your principles are, how do you accomplish them? And especially for a guy like Kliff coming out of the air raid system in college, when he first got to the NFL, we're talking way back year 1 in Arizona, he still wanted to do a lot of the same things that he did in college in terms of we want to play with 10 personnel. So 4 wide receivers, no running back, or 4 wide receivers, no tight ends. And just 1 running back in the backfield, and we'll spread guys out. And eventually what Kliff was able to do, and a guy like Monken has done this as well, and I think that's why they appreciated that conversation, or at least Kliff obviously did, is okay, we have this mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson. There's advantages for us to go big and have blockers that we can have out in front to block for him on quarterback sweeps and things like that. Okay, how do we then, considering one of those guys is Isaiah Likely, another is Mark Andrews, guys that are great pass catchers. How do we use that to our advantage and get to some of the spread concepts that we like with receivers in college, but that we like maybe with tight ends in the NFL because of how defenses match? And so watching Kliff evolve, there was time in Arizona, frankly, as you go back and study it, but especially how he's taken it to a different level this year, it's not surprising that a guy like Munkin maybe had some kind of influence on him. And specific to the personnel side of it, Kliff touched a little bit more on the conversation that he had with the Ravens offensive coordinator.
I think I was just trying to see if I did get back in. I was still at USC this time, but if I did get back in, things that I would like to do or change or things he thought that worked this time around when he did it. So it was just a good, candid conversation. A couple of guys that have kind of gone back and forth and where we thought really the state of the game is and what you can kind of get away with and what you can't get away with.
And if you think back to our conversation yesterday with Solak, I would bet that there are certain things about the run game that they talked about. I would bet that there's certain things about the screen game that they understand and get. And I heard a really good piece of analysis. Oh, my God, where was this? I don't think this was from Solak, but it might have been on Mina Kimes' podcast. It might have been someone else on another podcast. I know who it was. It was Derek Klassen on the Athletic Football Show. So, Derek Klassen, shout out to you. Klassen talked about how in college, because they run all this spread stuff, and Kliff certainly was this back in the day when he was at Texas Tech and when he was at at USC to an extent and all the different places that he was. When you have these 165-pound, 5'10" receivers that run these great vertical routes and have speed all over the field and work for your spread offense, you do still want to be able to run the football. So how do you create, whether it's good blocking angles or just tell, coaching style to say, hey, we're going to need you to go crack a safety or a linebacker and we're going to teach you how to do it? Or do we find ways to remove those guys from the blocking structure and take somebody with them so they just don't get their butt kicked and be in the way? And I think you see elements of all of that in what Kliff has done in the run game this year, and you certainly see it with the way that the Ravens do it as well. And sometimes it is like, hey, we're going to send Alameda. Now, Alameda will block, but for instance, there's a play last week. It's actually the Eckler 50-yard run. They send Zacchaeus in an orbit motion away from the run. Well, that pulls Zacchaeus out of the blocking surface and the corner who is in man-to-man coverage on him. Well, if the corner would be the guy who's the most likely contained player on the outside, and now you've removed him, everyone else has to sort, who's the contained player now, and it's one less guy you have to deal with. It's one less block you have to hit. So instead of that run needing 3 blocks or 4 blocks to hit on the front side, now it needs 3. That's better math for you. It's one less block that they can ruin the play with. And so there's things like that. There is, again, the use of personnel in terms of tight ends and okay, let's reverse this. Let's take our tight ends and run spread concepts because NFL athletes are better at the tight end position and we can get to where we need to go on the field and have it against guys that aren't good at covering. And so the screen game is a big one that Solak pointed out too, of most NFL teams and NFL coordinators that have been in the NFL bubble for 30 years aren't as likely to call as many screens. But in the modern NFL, with more athletic linemen, with these quarterbacks with quick releases, with some of the RPO options where you're throwing a screen not because it's called 100%, but because you had a run called and a screen called, and then it's a matter of which one is better based off the where the defense lines up and how many players are either in the way of the run or in the way of the screen because they can't be in the way of both. Having that willingness to call it again and again and again and make sure you're always in an advantageous situation from a number standpoint, that's something a guy like Kliff and a guy like Todd Monken as well are willing to do when the guys who have been around the NFL for their entire careers may not actually be willing to go down that road. So very cool highlight from Kliff on that, and good stuff from Solak yesterday. If you missed it, it's actually around this time. But if you missed it, we're listening to something else, shame on you. If you just had to work later or whatever, then okay, fine, no shame. Either way, go check it out in the Hoffman Show podcast feed or on YouTube at Craig Hoffman. When we get back, you'll hear more from Kliff Kingsbury on his offensive line, including how one key guy at the center of things is very key on the road in Baltimore. That's next on the Team 980. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. And let you hear from Kliff Kingsbury. You'll hear from Joe Whitt Jr. coming up a little bit later in the show as well. We'll also hear from you as an hour from now. It'll be time for Never Read the Comments, the part of the show each week where we don't listen to our own advice and we read the comments. Kliff Kingsbury talked today, though, a little bit more about his offensive line. And they have been able to insulate this offensive line in a major way this year, in part because of the game flow. And I know that some folks in the comments section have talked about, oh, well, what do you mean they haven't had to overcome any challenges? They were down against this team and that team. They haven't been down in the second half where they have to chase a game. They have not. They've been able to control the flow of the game or be up in a way that running the football has stayed advantageous to them, where they can stay balanced. They can call the game exactly like they want, as opposed to, hey, we're down 3 touchdowns. We gotta scrap the run, and we just got to get big chunk plays. We got to find it. So that helps your offensive line a lot, staying out of drop back predictably, making sure that the screen game is available to you. So, hey, okay, we're starting to take on a little pressure. Let's just float Jaden back, loft the ball over their head to Austin Eckler, and now we have a 40-yard gain. The draws, they've been incredible on those. Some of the counters and traps. So they've been able to use the run game anytime any team gets aggressive against them. So what happens if you have to drop back 40 times per game? How comfortable would Kliff be as a play caller? He was asked that directly today.
Yeah, I mean, you know my background, so we can drop back as much as we want and have fun doing it. But that's not what's best for us right now and who we are. So, yeah, I mean, he did it in college. He was in a shootout every week last year. But we're trying to be efficient and maximize who we are, and the guys have done a good job executing plays. But if we had to do that, yeah, it'd be fun to watch.
Fun to watch is one thing. Fun to execute and successful for the football team is another. I think the other part of that Kliff doesn't touch on there, but is worth mentioning as someone from the outside, as an objective observer, an analyst, is that also would be a very bad sign for the scoreboard because they're only doing that if they're down. And by the way, part of the reason the defense has been able to turn things around is because they have had better game flows. Part of their issue this year defensively is they cannot stop the run in the way that they need to consistently. They're actually in a very interesting place in the run. Solak mentioned this yesterday, and I went and double-checked the numbers, and of course he's right. I was just like, wow, I need to see how bad this is for myself. Like, yards per carry-wise, explosive runs-wise, bad. But they're also near the top of the league in stuff rate, a.k.a. like at or behind the line of scrimmage. I think it's runs minus or 1 yard or less, I think is the stuff rule. But, like, they will get you in 2nd and 11, and then that's how they've been able to be better. Like, okay, we'll give up a 20-yarder, make a tackle, Quan Martin 30 yards down the field, or Jeremy Chin runs a guy out of bounds, and then they come back and on 1st and 10, they run it again, the other team does, and you stuff them, and now it's 2nd and 11, and okay, we force a field goal. But what happens when, instead of in the second half, that not becoming an option, run after run after run, teams have to go drop back. All of a sudden, you can dial up some of the blitzes. You can play some of the softer coverage structures, get this defense where it's most comfortable. And so from an offensive standpoint, would it be kind of fun? Would Kliff be like, this is familiar. Let's shoot out all day? Yes. Would Dan Quinn pull his hair out if he had any more hair? Yeah. That's not the game flow that they want to be in. This offensive line has thrived this year, not just because of the situations and how Kliff has managed that, but a lot of players playing well, including both guys at left tackle, Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman. I think by now, most of us, certainly I, anticipated that Coleman would have just taken the job outright, but Lucas has played well enough that he deserves to keep playing. So why has that left tackle worked well for the team this year? Here's Kingsbury earlier this afternoon.
Both are playing at a high level. I've been really impressed with both their attitudes and how they've handled that. It's not always easy rotating. You want to be out there and you want to get in your rhythm, but both guys have really embraced it and made each other better. And with Brandon missing some significant time in the preseason, I think it allowed him to grow and will continue to allow him to grow. But I think more than anything, just both guys playing at a high level has allowed us to continue that.
And I would say as a pass rusher, you want to get a rhythm. And so if as an offensive lineman, you can handle going in and out, and it's not something where your rhythm gets messed up, and both these guys have handled that extremely well, there actually is an advantage to not giving a Myles Garrett, for instance, last week, the same guy every single week, because great pass rushers will, and Logan has talked about this because he's trained some pass rushers around the NFL and worked with guys. He also works with some offensive linemen as like a strength coach and position coach on an individual level. And one thing that both O-linemen and pass rushers have talked to him about is the great ones will set you up. The great ones will, hey, all right, I'm going to eat this in the second quarter, but I'm going to keep trying to get around the edge, or I'm going to keep trying this inside move, knowing that in a big moment late in the game, I'm going to get my sack. And how many times have we seen the great players make plays like that? I mean, Aaron Donald had so many in his career, key sack fumbles, and you're like, of course it's Aaron Donald right there. At his absolute peak in Denver, guys like Von Miller. You just have this knack for making the big play, but it's more than a knack. It's more than a clutch gene. It's a setup where I'm going to keep going, and just when I've lulled you into that sense of security, boom, I hit the counter, I do it at the right time, sack, ball game. And if you're not facing the same offensive tackle, snap in, snap out, it's a lot harder to do that. So for right now, keep rolling with it. But when did Kliff realize that the offensive line was maybe better than advertised? It couldn't have been much worse than advertised publicly. I think a lot of people that watched it knew they weren't nearly as bad, or weren't going to be as bad as they performed last year, as the production was last year. But when did Kliff, the guy in charge of it all, in charge of the offense, know that?
Yeah, I think just like I said before, just the way they kind of can figure things out on the run together, the communication they have, and their ability to, even if we just walk something through and maybe don't get a live rep at it, they're able to go into the game, and if there's an adjustment to be made, they can make it in real time and hit it and nail it, and that's been really impressive. So I know it wasn't a really hyped group coming into the season, but the way they've just worked and continue to work and continue to kind of support each other has been really, really cool to see.
That I've heard that now from a couple of different people, from DQ, from Kliff. I think Jaden talked about it as well in his post game the other day. So many press conferences. How many times can we listen to these same guys talking to microphones? Says a guy who talks into a microphone 15 hours a week on the radio. The ability to just say, hey, like in the game we can figure something we only walk through. Like that's a pretty special characteristic for guys to have that intelligence. And they've clearly valued that on that offensive line and in general. Like both an athleticism and an intelligence to say, I might not have repped this a ton, but I understand the concept. And this is why those walkthroughs are so valuable, is because they can work that out in a walkthrough. They don't run it in practice, but they fundamentally understand why they're doing a certain thing. And then they can sort out the stuff in the game. And that's gotten even better throughout the year. And it just leaves you more options as an offense. And if you don't, like, if for some reason you're like, how important is that really? I mean, it should be somewhat self-evident. Like, hey, more options to get it right is good. Obviously, you have to be able to execute them, which we just talked about why they can. But if you only have like two tools in the toolbox from a protection standpoint, you're very easy to manipulate. Your name is also the Cleveland Browns. And like last week, the ability for Joe Whitt Jr. to call not the world's most complex blitzes. Some stuff they called was exotic and cool, but there's some pretty simple stuff they called that they were able to just say, hey, if we line up like this, we can have the entire line slide this way, and then we'll just bring the pressure from the other side because they don't have the nuanced protection and they're not good at identifying blitzers, and thus we can fool them whenever we want. And teams have not been fooling the Washington Commanders on a regular basis. And, you know, obviously if that happens a couple times a game, then you got a pretty good chance that Jaden can be alert to that and he can get out of it. If it's happening every snap, it becomes a lot harder for him to be the hero every single snap. And so that ability to get everybody organized on the same page, decipher who's coming, who's not, get the whether it's a full line slide, whether it's we're gonna man zone this, we're gonna have whatever combination of calls, we're gonna squeeze it, we're gonna add in a chip, we're gonna keep the back in, like we're gonna do whatever we do, we're gonna send the back out, and it's like we're not gonna pick this up, so let's get the back out in space, throw over the blitzers, and hope Austin Eckler makes a play. They've done that sometimes. So between Jaden and this line, their ability to sort things out is mega, and one of the key guys for that is Tyler Biadasz. And that was a choice they made very, very specifically this offseason. They knew they wanted a veteran center to go with a rookie quarterback. So in a stadium in Baltimore, M&T Bank gets pretty loud. How important is it to have that guy who's been so good for them so far this season? Yeah,
I think week in and week out you're going to have your challenges, but on the road, in that environment with the noise and with the tough scheme that they have, it's definitely be amplified with that. He and Jaden have really got a good relationship going and have built from week one, and I think that'll continue. But this is definitely a huge challenge with what they do schematically and then the noise factor.
They do a lot of funky stuff. They're not as complicated as they were last year on the back end. Some of their blitz stuff is pretty funky. If you want the full preview of the Baltimore defense, definitely got to check out Take Command. It's out now. Logan and I went into the tape of what Baltimore's done so far this year and how we think Washington will attack it. We'll give you a little bit of that tomorrow on the radio if you don't get a chance to listen to the podcast. You'll get more from Kliff and more from Joe Whitt Jr. later on in the show during our Pick 6. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd team. Got lots to talk about, Commanders and otherwise, with him. Never read the comments, 5:30. Pick 6 at 6, aforementioned. And coming up next, I do have, Anthony, for you, an update on the Competition Wednesday punishment. We have a verdict on when I'm going to and how I'm going to do the ice bath because I lost.
Are you nervous?
Not really.
You're excited for it?
I wouldn't say that either.
Okay.
But we'll get into it next on the Team 980. Never read the comments in half an hour here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. But right now, before we get to all the comments left on YouTube by a whole variety of people, it's talk to a very smart person who joins us each and every week. It's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Our pleasure to welcome in for his Thursday visit Dan Pizzuta of the 33rd team, one of their lead NFL writers. Dan, what's up? How are you, dude?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. I am stunned, though, Dan. Stunned. Do you know why I'm stunned?
I believe so.
So last week, we had a little fun at the end of our chat with your quarterback rankings and how you have some systems in place to ensure that you do not overreact to things. There's a scoring system. There's a baseline level of like, hey, this is kind of what I thought. That way, as things change, you don't get too swayed by one game. And Jaden Daniels was kind of in the middle of the pack because he's still a rookie and all the reasons, and it makes total sense. I look up this morning, Dan, and look who is atop of your quarterback rankings. Why did you move Jaden Daniels to number one? Why did you give in to all of us? Is it because you're coming on the show today?
No, it is not. So after we had that, fairly lengthy discussion of what was going into those rankings last week, we ended up changing what goes into the rankings. So they are now like half of the kind of skill set rankings that I am still doing, watching these quarterbacks every week, kind of grading them on, different types of skills that they have, arm strength, accuracy, things of how these quarterbacks are individually playing. And then we also added to get a slightly more, accurate picture of what's actually happening in 2024. We now have a composite of EPA per play and success rate that is half of the score too. So it's half of still the grades and the skill set that I'm looking at, now half EPA per play and success rate. And when we put the actual production in for 2024, Jaden Daniels jumped to the top, and it's kind of hard to argue with that, with how he's played, and the production he's produced so far.
So is this something that when you've done rankings like this in the past, you reach like a threshold in the season where it's like, okay, there's enough data here to put something more objective from a data standpoint because one outlier isn't going to drive things in an untoward way? Or is this something new that you've added this year in Jaden Daniels because he's been ridiculously productive through 5 games as the beneficiary?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. It kind of got to a point where, through, 4 or 5 weeks is where you can start getting more of a sense of what's going to happen and things aren't going to really, fluctuate quite as much, if we were doing an EPA like base ranking off of, week one, those rankings kind of would have looked a little crazy, but also just kind of looking at trying to get a slightly better, there were some people who wanted more of an actual look of like what was actually happening in 2024. So, having a ranking that still had, Patrick Mahomes as a number one and, some other guys like Jaden Daniels lower. So we decided to, I worked with some of the editors. I kind of came up with more of a ranking that has the best of both worlds, I think, right now. So we still have half of it on like how these quarterbacks are playing kind of in a vacuum, and then you have the production. I think week 5 is a bit of where that probably does set in a little more, where it does make sense to start introducing those into the rankings, and it's not going to be as crazy of a leap.
So let's go into your subjective part of this. Dan Pizzuta, writer for the 33rd team with us here on the Hoffman Show. Definitely worth checking out the rankings, taking a look at the scores, how they come together, and then, of course, reading the parts that Dan actually writes. Everyone loves the graphic, but don't forget to read the words as well, the blurbs on each guy if you want to know more. But when you take a subjective look, I think last week's super interesting. The success rate and some of those numbers come down for Jaden last week, but some of the EPA per play and some of the other numbers are just fine because he finds these big, monstrous plays. What did you think of the week that he had last week and how he kind of found a different way to get things done and still ultimately put a 30-burger up on what was supposed to be a good Browns defense?
Yeah, I think that was one of the cool things, and actually, one of the kind of optimistic things about looking at how he played, where the success rate wasn't quite as good. So on a down-to-down consistency wasn't as good as he'd been, in previous weeks. And that was because, Cleveland was doing some things that disrupted what Washington wanted to do, but they were able to find the big plays, like you said. And the way they were able to do that, I think, was, a really a positive sign for what he's going to do going forward. What is it, the 66-yard pass to Terry McLaurin, when, as we were, talking earlier in the year, that's probably a ball or a play earlier in the year, weeks 1 and 2, where he gets out of the pocket. He's probably running for a little bit. Last week, his eyes are down the field. He's a wide open McLaurin down the field, makes that throw on the run, and it's a huge game. So those are the types of developments that we're seeing. So when there is kind of a bit of a stall a little bit sometimes in the down-to-down consistency, those big plays are going to come. And I think there were a couple of those this week where the big plays were just there. And I think there was a lot of kind of trust in Daniels too. They put him in empty a lot, which I think was to kind of make Cleveland show what they were going to do on defense, since they were going to blitz a lot. I think that kind of made them declare what the defensive look was going to be. And then that was trust in Jaden Daniels to only have a 5-man protection out of the blitz, kind of make some things happen. The Dyami Brown touchdown was out of empty. So there were a lot of big plays there where I think they put a lot of trust on him to kind of, be able to be in control of when those blitzes were coming, when they just had a 5-man protection. So I think there's things like that are just little things keep getting added to his plate every week, and it's been really exciting to see.
Again, Dan Pizzuta is our guest here on the Hoffman Show from the 33rd team. So this week they've got Baltimore, a defense that is trying to find exactly the best way to play without Mike McDonald, without 2 other guys who became DCs, brain drain from that staff, but still a lot of good players, including Roquan Smith in the middle. What opportunities exist for Jaden this week in this offense, and then what are kind of the roadblocks that you think could trip them up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Baltimore, they're definitely still trying to figure out what they are. This is still a very good run defense. So I think that could be really interesting if the run game, which has been really good for Washington, well-designed, kind of opened up a lot of things so far this season. If that gets slowed down a little bit and Jaden Daniels now has to do a little more, traditional drop back, where maybe the run isn't working quite as much, I think that might be the kind of hiccup. But the pass coverage is just not completely clicking for Baltimore right now. I think they do have a lot of talent. They're still trying to figure out exactly, who should be playing where. Kyle Hamilton's playing more in the box this season than he was last year when he was kind of moving around a little bit. I think they're still looking for that second linebacker to really play next to Roquan Smith. And Roquan Smith kind of with so much more on his plate this season, not as good in coverage in the middle of the field as he was last year, really like how he's been in Baltimore really his entire career. So there are just, a few things that aren't working quite as well for Baltimore. And I think when you kind of have a passing offense like Washington does, I think that is going to be what leads them this week because I think Baltimore is still going to be very stout against the run.
Well, I was going to say, if you're Kliff, would you even bother trying? Do you just try to gun it early and test them in the passing game and kind of do the old let's pass to set up the run? Or because I feel like this is an offense that is built on running the football and still you have to try it out and see if you can do it better than, say, a team like Cincinnati, who's just not very good at it. If you're Kliff, how would you approach the actual game planning and the balance and knowing when it's time to pull the plug because maybe they are just this good at stopping it?
Yeah, that's probably a thing where they're probably going to have some, RPOs early to kind of give Jaden the choice to give the looks. If it's a good run look, we'll try to run. If it's not, we can pass, and that's kind of what they, based a lot of the offense on earlier in the season. So I think there's probably going to be a bit of that. I would expect we see, some bootlegs and things to get the the defense moving a little bit, moving some of those pockets to kind of, open up some things. And like you said, I think it is maybe a pass to set up the run kind of thing where we might see a little more spread out to lighten the box a little bit, use some of that to get the pass game going. And then when there are less defenders in the box is when the run can really start going. That's kind of what Kliff was really good at back in Arizona. So I kind of expect that to still be a thing, kind of create some of those lighter boxes with structure of how the offense is kind of set up in the formation. And that is kind of going to give you a bit of a run advantage if it can against a defense that's still pretty good stopping it.
On the other side of the ball is Dan Pizzuta with us for his Thursday visit here on the Hoffman Show. I am obviously, like most people that would like to see Washington win, fairly concerned about stopping the run. Washington has been very bad at it statistically. Baltimore is averaging, I cannot believe this is a real stat, but we did our preview show this morning and did all my Baltimore prep, and they really are averaging 6.1 yards per carry. If you are Joe Whitt Jr. on the defensive side, do you do what Lou Anarumo did and say if it takes 9 in the box to stop it, that's what we'll do and we'll live with the results? Or is there a different, better plan to try to stop Derrick Henry, Lamar, and Justice Hill and everyone else that they'll give carries on Sunday?
Yeah, I think the cool thing for Baltimore as an offense, and definitely not a cool thing as a defense going against them, is they have so many ways to win this year. Like earlier in the season, they were relying a lot on Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson to be kind of that dynamic duo in the run game. And then you did see last week, the Bengals just like, yeah, we're going to stack the box, have those extra players. And Lamar Jackson was, sitting back in the drop back game, and he had his best game as a passer, and they were able to win that way. And once they kind of, usually you use the run game to kind of wear down a defense, but they were able to use the pass game to do that. And then by the time it gets into overtime, Derrick Henry has that big run because Cincinnati's defense was just exhausted from all the pass rush they were trying to do and all of that. So I don't think there's an easy way to defend Baltimore's defense or Baltimore's offense right now. It's really pick your poison. I think there are probably going to be a lot of teams that are still going to try to stack the box against Baltimore and try to, make a Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers and see if Mark Andrews can actually, if him and Lamar Jackson can connect, like they used to, and just kind of test that. That I'm sure that's probably maybe technically the safer option if you are a defensive coordinator, but I think Lamar to this point has shown he's going to be able to beat that. So that's definitely not, a foolproof way to defend this team.
So when to circle all the way back to the QB rankings, where did you have Lamar and how do you grade him out and his continued growth as a passer and how that balances out with the stuff that he's been able to do as a runner since day one?
Yeah, so in the skill set the rankings, the skill score that I'm doing, right now I have Lamar Jackson third, which is, he's great. He's better accuracy than giving credit for, the way he creates and everything he does. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And right now, I wrote about this after the game for my First and 10 column on Monday. He is better right now than he was at this point last season. When he ended up winning the MVP. So the fact that he does have now a better running game that you actually have to really worry about the other back individually who is in that backfield, which is just kind of giving him more advantageous looks. One, when he is a runner and when he is a passer, right now, he is playing much better than he was last year, which I think is really cool for Baltimore, definitely scary for the defenses that are going to be going against them.
Dan Pizzuta with us here on the Hoffman Show for just a few more minutes as we look at the Commanders and Ravens and then, of course, take a look around the rest of the league. And, Dan, we do these power rankings. We call them our tier rankings because ranking 1 through 32 is too hard. And it's like, okay, who lives together in the neighborhood, so to speak. And we do those on Tuesdays. And our top group we call prime contenders. And, there's a distinctive group that we have, but it just doesn't feel like there is a powerhouse in the way that we've had some of the powerhouses of years past. Is that how you feel as well? Is that something that, as you talk to other people around the league, that everyone feels a little bit more beatable, and that even though the Chiefs are undefeated, they haven't set the world on fire yet. They're still clearly trying to figure a lot of stuff out, specifically offensively. I don't think anyone's as scared of the undefeated Vikings with Sam Darnold at quarterback as some of the other teams that we see undefeated through 5 weeks in previous years. Does it feel like there's a real balancing of power this year, or is there a team or a group of teams that you would distinctly put above everyone else and that could compete with previous versions of, the top teams in the league in the last 5 years?
Yeah, I think you're onto something where I don't think there is one fully complete team right now, and I think that's kind of where we are at the top tier. I think if you look at DVOA right now, Minnesota is number one. They're far and away number one on defense, but they're 19th on offense. And they're, been up and down, a little inconsistent when, you have Justin Jefferson wide open, that's going to work. But, down to down, you are, again, not that worried about a Sam Darnold beating you probably deep into the playoffs. And then you look at some other teams like Kansas City still figuring out some things on offense. And, that might just be a thing where they spend the regular season just trying some things like they did last year. And then in the playoffs, they're going December into the playoffs, they kind of know what works. We don't have a San Francisco from last year. That was just an historically good offense. We don't have that type of team this year. So I think everyone is clustered a little bit further together. There's no one crazy standout unit either. And I just don't think we have that complete of a team that is going to, scare other teams on both sides of the ball, which I think is going to make for a very interesting season that, I don't think there is, one clear, favorite best team, like you said.
Yeah, the Chiefs still kind of get to be in their own bubble because they did this last year where it's are they good? Are they good? I don't know. They won the Super Bowl. Are they good? And it's they won the Super Bowl again. So that's nice. And their defense is nasty. The team that, of course, we figured would challenge them is the one that they played in the Super Bowl last year in San Francisco. They play tonight on Thursday Night Football. I guess I'll ask it this way. How many of their problems do you think are fixable without major changes? Would they need to make some kind of mega trade at the deadline to acquire some sort of defensive talent? Or is it as simple as wait, they'll get a couple guys back, add McCaffrey, or is it schematic? How fixable do you feel the 49ers problems are to not necessarily win games, because they're obviously still okay in terms of record and where they are in the division, but to be back at the elite level they've been for much of the last decade?
Yeah, I still think they're mostly fine, and it's just going to be small tweaks. The defense it doesn't look great right now. It's still fifth in defensive DVOA, which, it just is kind of, it's playing better than it looks to a sense. And once they get, I think, a little more healthy, I think they're getting a little more pressure than they are actual sacks, which is, something that I think is going to eventually, help them down the line. You had Fred Warner wasn't playing, completely healthy for a stretch. And, when he was, the first 3 weeks, he was probably the best defensive player in football. I think they, don't have that really second or third linebacker a little bit, and they're playing base a little more than I think they were last year. So that's one place where in the middle of the defense, it's not working quite as well, but I don't think that's going to be something that completely derails them. On offense, it's really interesting because they have gone a bunch of games without the full set of playmakers. And that's even if you exclude Christian McCaffrey, who hasn't played yet. George Kittle's been in and out of the lineup and might not play tonight, I believe. Deebo Samuel missed some games. So there's been, just up and downs in there. And they really have put a lot on Brock Purdy. And for the most part, he's been playing pretty well. But there have been things where he has the highest average time to throw in the league. And that's a lot of him just kind of sitting back there and trying to extend some plays. And that's not really the game you want him to play. They're only running play action at about 19% of plays, which is really what you think of with the Shanahan type of offense that kind of can create some of those open throws in the middle of the field. So they've kind of gotten away from that and put a lot more trust in Purdy. And I think we saw kind of last week, I think there were 2 plays that he really tried to extend that he took a sack and it pushed them out of scoring range. So there's just some small things like that. And they've been a really bad red zone offense this year. They were one of the best red zone offenses in the league. And I think that's the place where they really miss Christian McCaffrey because he was one of the most targeted talented players and had one of the highest rates of rushes in the red zone last year. And that piece missing is kind of something that has stopped them from scoring touchdowns when they get into the red zone. So I'm not sure how they completely fix that, but when you do have the full complement of receivers, that's certainly going to help. But there's just like so many little things for San Francisco right now where the margin for error is just not as big as it was last year. So all these little things add up, but there's not just like one big problem, which I'm not sure if that's better or worse for them, but it's not something that I think fundamentally can't be fixed incrementally throughout the season.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And I guess one way you fix it is you go to Germany and you have calf surgery that you can't get in America. So, good luck to Christian McCaffrey on that. Hope that he's back soon, and we'll see what the Niners can do. They got Seattle tonight. That's going to be an interesting one for sure. Seattle coming off the loss to the Giants. And then we'll got a busy weekend, including Commanders-Ravens this weekend. Dan will be writing all about it at the 33rd Team, his first and 10 column Monday morning. Check out where Jaden winds up in the QB rankings next week as well. And then, Dan, we'll see you back here on the radio next Thursday. Appreciate you as always, sir.
All right. Sounds good. Always a good time.
Dan Pizzuta, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. He's very smart. Some of the comments we get on the internet are very dumb. We read them anyway. Never read the comments is next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Entering the back half of the show. And Anthony, I think I need to find a snack. I'm hungry. It just hit me.
I got some popcorn.
It's not probably gonna help me.
Nah, and it's also white cheddar.
Yeah, that's not gonna help your lactose intolerant host over here. I'll see what we got in the old snack cave after this segment. What are you looking for? You trying to find me food? What else do you have over there? Oh, you're gonna eat your food in front of me.
No, I'm not gonna eat them. These get stuck to my fingers, man, so I can't really eat these until like I'm really off the clock.
Because you'd have to press a lot of buttons.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's an important part of your job. Me being hangry during this segment potentially feels like it could be a bad idea. Could be a great idea. I don't know, Anthony. Let's find out. You want to hit a button?
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, we cut up the show into all these different segments. We put them on the internet. You leave comments. We read them. The segments are at the Team 980 and at Craig Hoffman on YouTube. So we always start with a little palate amuse bouche, just get you up, get you going, remind you what the internet comment section is like if you're unfamiliar. We played the call from Shane in Oxon Hill earlier this week because it was brought up by another caller, and Shane from Oxon Hill famously had just the worst takes you could possibly have during the offseason about a variety of players, including Olamide Zaccheaus, or as he called him, Olamide Zaccheaus. I don't even think he said Zaccheaus, though. I think he said something else.
Yeah. Let me
His pronunciations were so bad. Do you have it up? I know you saved it somewhere we could find it very easily. So if we have to play Shane's call one more time just to refresh everyone's memory, I guess if we have to, we could do that. I mean, we hate doing it. It's just not entertaining at all. There's no real purpose to doing it. Anthony, how much longer do I need to stall for? Do you know where you put it or not? Okay. Let's play Shane's call.
The guy had 11 touchdowns over the past 2 years. Terry McLaurin has 9. Olamide Zaccheaus had 10 catches last year. Dyami Brown had 100 yards last year. Are we a better team without Jahan Dotson? No, we're not. So stop all the baloney, man. We traded Montez Sweat, and now we have Cleveland Furrow, who had 2 sacks. And Dante Fowler, who had 2 sacks. We have Austin Eckler, who is 30 years old. Like, come on, bro. Kendall Fuller is in Miami. Curtis Samuel is in Buffalo. Cam Curl is in with the Rams. And we have a guy, Adam Peters, who's bringing in bums. And everybody's like, oh, just because we're bringing in new faces mean we're better.
Yeah, they're better. They're definitely better. But to get us started on Never Read the Comments, Austin says, you guys need to isolate Olamide so Anthony can just drop it in constantly the next time that guy calls in. I do think there's a couple things from that. We just need to have a Shane board. Olamide. Dyami, who joined us earlier in the radio show. And then Nap the Man says, that's why Adam Peters is an NFL GM and Shane is a couch potato. That's harsh on Shane. He might be an active fella. You never know, Ant. Nothing? All right, thanks for your participation in the show.
Sorry, I was trying to actually cut up.
Olamide Zaccheaus.
Oh, you need to cut the Zach.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay, fine, fair enough. All right, let's get to some actual comments, shall we? So there's a theme to today's segment, which is people on the internet thinking they're smarter than experts. And of course, we welcome the comments. I just kind of think sometimes people need to take a step back. And instead of going, I know more than this expert, go, what do I not understand that this expert is saying? Because curiosity, fellas, let me help you out. Curiosity, an attractive trait in a human being. The ladies will love that. Whoever you're trying to attract of either sex, if you're a lady, you're a fella, whatever you're trying to, curiosity, attractive to all. So instead of doing what some of these comments do, I will perhaps make some suggestions. So, for instance, that dude Trav says, Washington, this is a response to Take Command, a segment, a podcast, that's what it's called, a podcast that I host with Logan Paulson, who played 10 years in the NFL because he was really smart. Washington was behind in the Bucs, Giants, Cincinnati, Arizona games. Every week there's some scenario, some player, some scheme that Logan says will be the biggest challenge, and then we blow past it only to have more of this. What happens if? The Ravens' defense is second to last defending the pass and gives up the 7th most points. Mike McDonald is in Seattle. They have a new DC. What have the Ravens shown this year to make you say they'll present any resistance to our league-leading scoring offense? And why do you want to see him struggle when he's already shown you he and Kliff can play from behind? And if your whole concept of, and like there's some great valid points in there, hey, why do you think he would struggle? What have you guys missed? Like, we're not above on Take Command, especially. I'll speak for me and Logan, above some self-reflection and to go, hey, what is it that we missed here? Because we're always trying to learn and get better. We are curious people. But to suggest like, oh, they've been behind in all these games. They technically were behind, but they weren't behind in the second half where they had to chase the game. What we're talking about is game flow. What we're talking about is situations where you would have to abandon the run, where you would have to change the way you call your offense and or your defense because you were trying to get a high variance turnover on defense. So we're going to blitz way more than we usually would because we have to take risks. And they've never been in that situation this year, outside of Tampa, where they obviously did not find a way to come back. So to pretend like, oh, this Logan Paulson guy, like, what does he know? Like, I don't really understand that. And it's one thing when you're doing that to an NFL vet, and like, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, hey, we got it. You don't need to defend Logan. But the comments on our interview with Ben Solak from ESPN are, man, there's some people telling on themselves. So Solak, I've known Ben for a long time. I've known Ben since pre-pandemic at some point. I don't think it was all the way back when I was living in Dallas, but like I've known Ben for a long time and we're not like super tight or anything, but like I've talked football with Ben Solak for like half a decade at this point, where I would go on his shows and then he's been coming on mine since he blew up and went national. And he and Trevor Sycamore, who's another friend of mine / friend of ours, like they used to do a show way back when for some network, and then Ben went to the Ringer, and now he's been hired by ESPN. And Ben has very distinctive thoughts on football. He's not afraid to give an opinion. It's part of the reason why he got his job at ESPN. But this dude studies his face off, and he knows a lot of stuff, and he talks to a lot of people. He's very, very smart, but he's also, open to criticism. Sure. But the fact that people just don't believe him because he looks like someone out of central casting for the guys that the football player beats up instead of the football player, like, you're missing out on an opportunity to learn stuff. So, like, I actually appreciate this one from Mr. Bird 09. How do they determine what an RPO is? I've been seeing less and less each game. Also, the wide receiver screens have been reduced game by game. I don't know. I think some of these advanced stats guys are just trying to save face still. Ben referenced in the interview that they throw more screen passes than anybody else in the league, and they throw a higher percentage of RPOs than anyone else in the league. And he even says RPO charting is hard, which it is, because sometimes it's hard to tell what is an RPO, a run pass option, where the handoff is live, or is it just a play action to a screen, or is it a screen that has a run action on it, and you're going the other way. So sometimes there's no real option. They just kind of try to make it all look the same, but it's predetermined. And sometimes both options are live, and that makes it hard. Some of that's easier if the offensive line is truly run blocking and the running back kind of looks back like, wait, why didn't I get the ball there? Then that was an RPO, and the quarterback pulled it and threw the screen. Other times, the offensive line makes sure that they don't get caught for illegal man downfield, and the run blocking isn't as real, and that was just a play action screen. Sometimes the bubble is there for decoration on the outside to hold defenders, sometimes out on a run play, and sometimes they could have actually risen up and thrown it. And if you watch the tape and you study the box counts, assuming the quarterback makes the right decision, you can chart those things, and people do, and they're right more often than they're wrong by a lot. But because they threw it such a high percentage earlier in the year, and because they still have used them at not as high as they were, but at a still decently high percentage, then Ben's not incorrect to say they've done this stuff more than other people. And he actually talks about how he means that as a compliment because they've kept defenses off balance. And so people taking this analysis as criticism and taking it personally because it's not the same thing they're hearing from everybody else. Like, to me, that's an opportunity you're missing to learn more about your team and about the game. And instead, people would rather do stuff like this. Joshua Henderson, I stopped listening to these clouds. The title is the only thing that made me click. Hey, Anthony, good job us on the clickbait.
Good stuff.
Hey, we're doing our job over here. He says, the title is the only thing that made me click. I knew from the jump once we hired Kliff, it was going to be a good day. Didn't know we'd look this good. Sat in the stands at the Arizona game chanting, "We got Kingsbury." I assume that's where the chant went. It just says, "We got Kingsbury." I added the rhythm.
Yeah.
Look, you didn't know anything when they hired Kliff Kingsbury. And I say that as respectfully as I can. We all have our best guesses on this stuff. And sometimes even the most informed people are going to be wrong. There's reasons why people have been critical of Kingsbury in the past. You don't know whether he's going to adapt and adjust. Kliff did. But there's a lot of coaches that are really stubborn. And they just are determined to do things their way. Many of those coaches have coached in the past, say, 4 years in Ashburn. Or, frankly, the past 15 years in Ashburn. And, frankly, the past 25. Basically, go back to Joe Gibbs. And so, you might have had a guess that turned out to be right, but we can have the humility to say that it was a guess. There's reasons. There's only so much knowing when it comes to pro football. It's a very random game with a lot of factors. Like, guys get hurt. That changes things. Certain influences happen in one game that affects how you adjust the next one. And there's only so much that you can know. Like, these are human beings. And so, again, Dewberry 10-11. I just want to know how many games of them he's watched. I would tell you he's watched all of them. To say bad games are coming because he's been so good, talking about Jaden, Ben Solak saying that Jaden has bad games coming because he's been so excellent so far, is such interesting logic considering their schedule is pretty weak after the Baltimore game. He has 4.4 speed, which has been said numerous times elevates his floor, and finally his level of progress has been insane week to week. You can say, well, he's a rookie, so he has to regress, but nothing about his rookie season so far has been rookie-ish, if you will. Tough for me to even remotely buy what he's trying to sell. Oh, and the kicker, Ben was far from the highest guy on Jaden going into the draft. That's true. Jaden was not Ben's favorite player in the draft. That's fine. And is there probably some level of confirmation bias that Ben is seeking? Of course, he's a human being. And he talks about how the week-over-week progression is unlike anything he's ever seen. And it does make this more difficult. But I would also say, you're out of your mind if you think that he's going to be the best player on the field for 17 straight weeks. Mahomes has a week per year where you're like, what was that, dude? Josh Allen went 9 for 30 last week. That's not a controversial statement. How many, I think reasonable people can disagree on. And then once he has some kind of regression. But, is there a chance that Jaden Daniels is just awesome from now until the end of time? Sure. CJ Stroud figured things out pretty quick, and even this year through some of Houston's struggles, he's been really, really good. But the league figures guys out, and then you have to adjust. Do I think Jaden will adjust? Yes. Do I have a higher belief in that than maybe Solak does? Sure. But to pretend like a rookie quarterback is going to come in and be the MVP when it's never happened in a league that's over 100 years old, you got to realize that, yes, it's your team, that's your guy, that's what we're all rooting for, but that is against the grain. That is against the odds. That is unlikely to happen. And saying the most basic of obvious things should not be a controversial take that results in things then where you get the fullest version of the hot take about smart people, which is you don't understand something they say, so you think it's fake, which is what David Linehat. I think it'd be funnier, Anthony, if it was David Linen Hat. What would a linen hat look like?
A linen hat?
Yeah. In my head, it's kind of, it's like a Kangol shape.
Yeah.
Kangles are not linen, but like a summer version of a Kangol.
Yeah.
Or like a short bill hat. I could see a linen something like that.
Or just have one that just comes over your head.
Or like a full sun hat.
Yeah.
I prefer straw in that situation. I want the Kliff Kingsbury extra large Saturn hat.
That's great aura. Kliff.
I don't have that kind of swag, but I do want to prevent that kind of sunburn.
I think you pull it off.
There's only one way to find out. Kliff, can I borrow your hat? David Linehat, or Linehat, but not Linen Hat, says advanced football metrics are made up BS manufactured to create content. Points, total yards, sacks, turnovers, passing, and rushing yards are about the only stats that really matter. These guys don't even figure in garbage time stats. Advanced metrics are not invented to create content because they weren't invented by media people. They were invented by teams. And so they wanted to understand the game better, and then people come out of the teams into the media or talk to people in media, and that's how those stats get into the media. Teams have all kinds of internal things they track and data that we don't even know exists. They have their own formulas for, say, estimated, EPA and things like that. Stats don't exist to provide content. They can be used to create content, and some people do it very, very poorly. I don't think Solak's one of those people, for whatever it's worth. But they are created to create context, not content, context. Very simply, the reason you don't include, directly to Linen Hat's example here, you don't include garbage time stats in some analysis because they're not actually telling of the game. If I want to know how a team plays, if I'm trying to predict what the Ravens do, I want to know how they play when the score is balanced, not when they're up by 20. Now, if I want to know how they react if they get up 20, I might look at just the garbage time stats because that's what I'm trying to figure out. So yes, some advanced stats folks look at specifically first and second down when you're in the first half because that tells you how a team, how a coordinator wants to call a game. Not the entirety of it, because their success rate on third down, how good they are at it, how good the red zone offense and defense are, their rate of committing penalties. Like, there's a bunch of other things. But if you take stats in the context in which they exist, as opposed to trying to take one stat, and this is where people get in trouble, you take one stat and then say that means everything when it doesn't include the context of everything. There's only one stat that does that, points, ultimately, wins and losses. And even that has its flaws in terms of trying to be predictive of what's going to happen next. Then yeah, that's not very good. But just because you don't understand something, if you get greeted with a statistic or a number or a take that you're like, wow, this person's smart. Because like people have been crushing Mina for some of the takes she had in the offseason. I don't think Mina Kimes is any less smart because I disagreed vehemently in many of the things that we disagreed upon. She has been proven wrong on about the Commander specifically. I don't think she's any less smart. I would hope that she's reflective and, gets better. This goes like, okay, I see what I missed here. That makes my analysis better moving forward. But I don't think she's any less smart. She missed. I have bad takes. Everyone has bad takes. When you do as much talking as we do in a microphone, you're going to have takes that you miss on. But the thing is, like, do you ultimately learn from them? Are you worth listening to based off that stuff? And it's disappointing to see all these comments in our comments specifically about really, really smart people who I wouldn't put on the air unless I thought they were smart and worth it because they got a few things wrong or they had a take that you disagreed with that you happen to be right on, even though it's their job and they have 1,000 other takes that they were right on that you either didn't even bother to listen to or you were wrong on and never want to talk about again. That's the end of my smart people spiel. As for where the Commanders fit in the NFL's hierarchy, some reaction to our tier rankings this week. Are the Commanders prime contenders? Jacob Kemper, 40-86. No, they still haven't beat anybody. Win this week, keep beating the teams we're supposed to, split the division. We finished 11-6 and we have a puncher's chance, but no. We are 4-1 against bad teams, 0-1 against good teams. I think that's fair. You go 1-1 against good teams, I think we're having a different conversation. Aid Smith, RB7CE, says, they're absolutely contenders because outside of week 1, they haven't met that defense to stop them, and until then, they'll keep on rolling. Baltimore's very interesting. Logan and I talking through it this morning on Take Command, which you can check out now, obviously, anywhere you get your pods. He said when you watch the tape, the numbers don't really add up, which is why, by the way, you look at the numbers and watch the tape. And some of the passing stuff they've given up is because they're facing so much passing because they have been up in games. And then down to down, they've been pretty good, but they give up explosives, and now all of a sudden that changes the equation. So I think Washington, like their path to victory through Baltimore and saying, oh, Baltimore won't stop them. They probably will much more close to what Cleveland did down to down, But as you saw with the explosive plays, Cleveland also gave up more points to Washington in the first half than any of these other teams that were less successful down to town because they gave up such significant chunks at once. Joseph with a good reminder as well. Joseph Boone, J2T. Right now, I would have to say yes, they're contenders, depending on what they look like at the trade deadline. And if they make any significant trades, probably determine if that's all, or if it lasts all year. Remember, what is now is not necessarily what will be, and the Commanders definitely could be buyers at the deadline. All right, Anthony, some important business to wrap up at the end here. Little bit of fun.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Reaction to Mitch Tischler on the show talking about, as he calls it, rock, scissors, paper. And whether or not you go rock, paper, scissors, shoot, or it's just rock, paper, scissors. Al versus World. It's just rock, paper, scissors. You put your choice up on that. No shoot, just rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
So, yeah, no, in this case it would be rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. But no, I have for a long time been a rock, paper, scissors, shoot person. I feel like as a kid I might have
I think as a kid you start out rock, paper, scissors. But as you grow up,
grown folks edition,
yeah,
there's
rock,
shoot
paper,
at the
scissors,
end.
shoot. You got to shoot.
JC Captain Chaos says, I might be telling my age or it's an area code thing. He's a 202 guy. But there was no word shoot mentioned when I was growing up. That's new. It was just rock, paper, scissors. But you still went after scissors in silence. I hope that makes sense. Not really. If it was just rock, paper, scissors, and you go on scissors, that would I get. But if it's rock, paper, scissors, and then you throw something on the fourth one, that doesn't make no damn sense.
Shoot.
Right. You say shoot. Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors, silence? Like, no. JC, you must mean the first one.
I hope so.
And then last but not least, Anthony, reaction to my push-ups from Competition Wednesday.
Uh-oh.
Mr. K Hall 2002 says simply, damn. To which I responded, I said that and many other four-letter words as I was doing my 100 push-ups in 2 commercial breaks.
It's a lot of four-letter words you probably used over there.
For a lot of push-ups. And then Billy Solser says, my man, get that work. My respect for you just increased.
That's respect then, man. There you go. Show the guns.
Just a little bit. Yeah. I was watching the tape back. I was proud of my form. I'll take it. I think I did a good job.
That's good stuff.
I never want to have to do it again.
You sure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lose.
Okay.
And if I do lose, I don't want 100 push-ups.
Well, if you keep losing, then you might have to do everything.
That is true. The ice bath is waiting upon me this weekend. All right, when we get back, Joe Whitt Jr. is waiting upon you. The Commanders' defensive coordinator, you'll hear from him, and then Kliff Kingsbury in our Pick 6 at 6. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. We'll get going to flip the order here. We're going to get to Joe Whitt Jr. coming up in 10 minutes. We're going to start with Kliff Kingsbury and what he had to say today in our Pick 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, let's get rolling as we are behind schedule, but we can run a hurry-up offense, if you will.
Number 1.
Jaden Daniels has not only been good, he has continued to grow. And so today, Kliff Kingsbury was asked yet again what he continues to see on the growth of his quarterback and if the Ravens perhaps are the best test yet for his rookie QB.
I mean, I've said it from day one, like every day is another chance for us to see where he's at. You know, that's the approach we've taken, and that's the work he's putting in every day. He gets here at the same time and grinds at it every day, and we just talked about making those incremental improvements every day and building from that. So they have a great defense. It'll be an awesome atmosphere, and I know our guys are excited.
Definitely. And they've already seen so much growth from Jaden. And last week was an interesting one because it wasn't like he had a perfect game all the way through, just in rhythm the entire time. He had to find it a little bit, which was something a little bit new. But, hey, he did it.
I like the way he battled. He hit the big play to Terry, which is an unbelievable throw. Great play by those two guys. And then we turn it over going in. But I just like the way he battled. He stayed with it, kept his poise, and made some really good decisions in the second half. His operation in the 2-minute has really been exceptional in those scenarios. So that's encouraging if we can keep building off that.
One thing that's great that Kliff has done is he's continually been able to get the first down. And so whether it's in 2-minute or just in the flow of the game, they can get into that hurry up, get into that tempo. And it's not like they're always snapping the ball with 15 seconds on the play clock. Like, they'll run it down, but they don't let the other team sub. They have the versatility to do that and still be really effective from a lot of different things. And that has helped Jaden obviously be in positions to succeed. And Kliff has called great games. Jaden's executed at a high level. They both deserve equal amounts of credit. But they're not the only ones, which brings us to
Number 2.
And that is another group that has been playing really well, the offensive line. And it's not a 5-man group, it's a 6-man group, legitimately, as Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman have been rotating at left tackle. Why has that worked so well?
Both are playing at a high level. I've been really impressed with both their attitudes and how they've handled that. It's not always easy rotating. You want to be out there and you want to get in your rhythm, but both guys have really embraced it and made each other better. And with Brandon missing some significant time in the preseason, I think it allowed him to grow and will continue to allow him to grow. But I think more than anything, just both guys playing at a high level has allowed us to continue that.
And they have been able to find their rhythms while also maybe knocking off the pass rushers that line up against them out of their rhythms because you're facing a different guy. It's harder to set up that move later when you're not getting all the snaps against the same guy. Typically, this doesn't work, but it has worked really well for Washington so far. I do think they probably eventually want to get to the point where Coleman is their guy, not just in the future, but this season. But for right now, it's working. Don't mess with it and just keep on rolling, especially when the chemistry is as good as it has been, something that Kliff has really appreciated about this O-line and how they work together.
Yeah, I think just like I said before, just the way they kind of can figure things out on the run together, the communication they have and their ability to, even if we just walk something through and maybe don't get a live rep at it, they're able to go into the game, and if there's an adjustment to be made, they can make it in real time and hit it and nail it, and that's been really impressive. So I know it wasn't a really hyped group coming into the season, but the way they've just worked and continue to work and continue to kind of support each other has been really, really cool to see.
And that starts off the field. Some of you may know this already. Some of you may not. Like, they get together every Thursday, and I'll give credit to, like, John Keim is where I heard this, but I'm sure others on the beat have reported it as well. But they get together every Thursday night, and they bond. And whether it is a nice steak dinner or whether it is they're going to go clean out a Five Guys, can you imagine, Anthony? Just like you're working the counter at Five Guys, and here comes the Commanders' offensive line. And, like, before they get to the table, I would just turn around and be like, everyone start cooking. Cook what? Yes. More fries. Down. Burgers. Get the extra thing of cheese from the back. It's a lot of food.
And they also might need sack of peanuts as well.
Yeah,
peanuts.
that's true. That is correct. Get it all. Apparently, I can't remember who it was. One of them though, like, doesn't do like fries and milkshakes, just like more burgers, like 2 doubles and a single. I don't need to fill up on fries. Give me more meat.
That
sounds like Allegretti. He's a Chicago guy.
That's a lot of food, man. That's
Yeah.
a lot of just
Big
meat.
fellas.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your Five Guys order?
I'm getting a double patty, with some bacon, mayonnaise, ketchup, maybe lettuce. Depends on like how I'm feeling the day. But yeah,
Lettuce, depending on how I'm
It's
feeling
because,
today.
It's because sometimes when you ask for lettuce, you know what they do? They just throw it all on there. I don't want my sandwich to be that messy. I'm a clean eater when I eat. You know, I don't
So
really
never tomato.
I'll get a tomato at a different burger spot,
Okay.
but I wouldn't get it at Five Guys because the burger's already big. So if I add a tomato, now it's gonna be even bigger. I don't need that.
Okay.
I like to be clean.
All right.
You know.
There's a methodology. I don't fully understand it, but there's a methodology. And hey, it's your food. It's your order.
Have you seen the Burger King commercial where the guy has little hands?
Yeah.
I don't want that to be me. Yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Fair enough. All right.
Number 3.
Off we go. Back to you, Kliff. Kingsbury also talked about the running game today, and if opposing defenses are starting to respect the offense's abilities on the ground, because obviously they've been so prolific through the air, but, you know, this running game's been pretty darn good too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's never really been what we've been trying to be about. It's more just maximize that week what we can do offensively to score the most points. And so if we got to run it every play, we will. If we got to throw it, we'll throw it. But our guys have done a nice job. It helps when Jaden's adding, those type of yards of his own. But that Baltimore rushing attack is vaunted right now, when I watch their offense every week and what they're doing. So we'd have a long way to go to kind of reach that level.
They're doing a lot of similar stuff, though, stylistically. Of course, like Brian Robinson's great. Derrick Henry's a Hall of Famer. Jaden has been tremendous. Lamar is the best rushing quarterback in the league. He might be the only guy that's better than Jaden, but like Lamar's Lamar, 2-time MVP. Show some respect for what he's been able to do in this league. And so, yeah, their rushing attack's crazy good. But I do think what you've seen in watching defenses and how they've attacked Washington every week, you do see them starting to adjust to the Commanders' running game a little bit and some of the opportunities and the binds that you get put in. Of course, that is probably a good thing for Joe Whitt Jr. and his side of the ball because they have to practice against that every week. They've thought a lot about it. Now you're going to see what they can do against Lamar. The back half of our Pick 6, where you hear from Joe Whitt next. But first, let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports. On the day, by the way, the WNBA Finals begin. We'll talk about that at 6:30. This look presented by Wawa. Gotta have a Wawa. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. All right, let us get to what Joe Whitt Jr. had to say as part of the Pick Six. Of course, 6 biggest storylines of the day. And we, go through them every day. And on Thursdays, the coordinators talk. And so off we go with Joe Whitt Jr. and what he had to say about his defense.
Number 4
in our Pick Six, which comes from Joe Whitt Jr., is about the cornerback position. That is one that has been a cause of much talk this season. It is one that, everyone's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? At corner, is Emmanuel Forbes going to come back and play? Is it this, is that? Then all of a sudden last week, there was no rotation. There was no working guys back. It was Mike Sanders still on the outside, Noah Igbenogany on the inside, Benjamin St. Juste on the other. So what have they seen from Mike Sanders still to say, hey, you've grown enough to be a number 2 outside corner?
Mikey, we've moved him inside and out. Last 2 games he's played outside, and we put him to the field the last 2 games, and he's getting more comfortable there. He can play with vision. He played a lot more physical. He's covering well. So right now that's where we need him to be, and so he's going to find a home back inside at some point. But from where the defense is right now, we need him to the field.
So there you go. It's switching sides depending on which side there's more space to cover. That means he often has help on the inside, like with the nickel player, depending on the formation, obviously. But there's always going to be certain support to the field that they rely upon. Big picture, he did hint that, hey, we want to eventually get him back inside. But why outside? And did you think that this was a possibility back in training camp?
Yeah, we knew he can play both inside and outside. Ideally, we started him playing at the star position, but we play guys, like I told you, each week we change up for what we need to do to win that particular game, and so that's what we've been doing.
And I do think that that's an important point, right? There is a chance that we see Emmanuel Forbes, for instance, again in a different matchup later on this season. Well, also, things happen, but on Forbes, why was there no rotation last week? This was a guy that was the starter, got injured. what's going on here?
That's same as the Mikey question, playing to the field. We're each week going to play the guys in position that we feel best, that gives us a chance to win that particular game. And so, that's how I can answer all those questions of the number of reps that anybody's playing at any position. That's what we felt that was best for that week.
And they go in with the plan. If that plan doesn't work, I think they move things around. And I say that because Dan Quinn, when I asked him post-game about the corner rotation last week at Northwest Stadium, almost said the old name, but that's not who pays for it anymore, at Northwest Stadium, DQ said no, it was working, so why would we change it? So I think that they probably divide up the reps on some level with anticipation, but also depending on what they think based off the matchup. Now, playing Mikey outside has also opened up the spot inside for Noah Igbenogany, who has played very, very well and was with Dan Quinn and Joe Whitt in Dallas last season. What has been the growth for Noah that has made him one of the best options that they've got?
We got him late last year when we were in Dallas, and with the trade, when we traded Fat for him, and we had a number of guys that were just ahead of him, and with him coming in there late, he came in here at the same time with everybody else, and he was able to put his performance out there, and he's earned the right to go out there and get the reps in the starting position that he's getting. So he just, when in Dallas, he came late and he was behind the 8 ball a little bit.
I mean, he was really, really good in training camp. Not amazing, not, hey, he has to play, but he definitely showed an ability in training camp. You're like, I think they could probably rely on that guy. And outside, and when he was called upon early, not as much, but all of a sudden you put him inside, and he shows a physicality and a competitiveness that really is beneficial. So I'm excited to see what he can do for the rest of the season if they need him, or maybe Emmanuel Forbes reemerges outside and you get the Mikey back inside, and that can be the group that you rock with. But they're definitely going to be open-minded about it, and so it's going to be something that we continue to track.
Number 5.
This weekend, of course, Joe's unit, they got to track Derrick Henry, and that is particularly tough, and especially hard when you are worried about Derrick Henry to one side of the run, and what happens if they fake it to him and Lamar Jackson starts running the other way. Very, very difficult run game to defend. Joe Whitt Jr. on doing that very difficult task.
It starts with Todd Monken. I was with him in Cleveland in 2019. Extremely smart guy. They have a mobile quarterback that can beat you with his arm and his legs. They have a big running back downhill that's faster than you think, and then they have a smaller running back that runs with more power than you think. So they 43 and 22, both of them are really good players. The offensive line's big, but they can get on people, and so they're good, and they know what they're doing. They know how to scheme it up. They do a nice job.
They certainly do. They have every run in the book in. They can run power. They can run inside zone. They can run outside zone. They can run gap scheme. They can run pin pull. They can run zone read. They'll run reverses and end arounds and all that kind of stuff with their receivers like Zay Flowers. They'll do it with Justice Hill coming around on a jet sweep. There is a lot of different stuff that they do in their running game. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how Joe Whitt Jr. dedicates his resources. And I'm also curious because, Joe mentioned the uniqueness of Derrick Henry there. And Logan said something this morning that I thought was interesting, is that despite his size, he plays like a speed back. He's big enough that he will stiff arm you through the earth. He is hard to tackle because he is just so large, but he's not like a Marshawn Lynch power style runner. He runs like a fast guy, and he is a fast guy, which makes stopping him very, very difficult.
You're not necessarily approaching him when you're approaching the offense. Okay, you got to be in your gap. You have to be able to defeat blocks, send them where you want them to send them, and in that standpoint, from a tackling standpoint, you talk about, and it's every week. It's not just with Derrick. You have a tackling plan for every back that you have, and you try to stick to the plan. And so we have our tackling plan for him, just like we had it last week, and that doesn't change.
It's what that tackling plan is, and executing that becomes a lot harder against a back like Derrick Henry. Corralling him is hard because he's fast, like legitimately fast, one of the fastest ball carriers in the NFL every single year. You know, when the list comes out, he breaks, you know, an 80-yard run seemingly every single year. He's already gotten a couple that are nearly that long this year or longer. He's a unique guy. And you talk about corralling and getting to the football. Like, trying to tackle him with one is a nightmare. You got to send him where you want to send him. That way you got multiple bodies there waiting on him, because that is about the only way to bring that dude down.
Number 6.
Now, of course, the Commanders are in the spotlight, and a lot of that is about Jaden and the offense. So is that something that Joe Whitt Jr. enjoys? Like, hey, we're just going to chill here in the background and work on our craft? Or does he feel like his unit perhaps needs a little bit more attention, deserves a little bit more attention?
Well, I'm not necessarily looking for any type of attention. I'm looking for better play. You know, Jaden, he's getting all the attention that he's getting because he's played outstanding, and that's what comes with it. And so the only thing I care about is winning football games, and I'm glad he's our quarterback. And so we're trending the right way the last couple of weeks, and it's gonna keep going that way for the defense. We're gonna start making a little bit more splash getting this ball. The physicality is definitely there. But I don't care about being in darkness or light. I just care about winning. That's the only thing I really care about.
Was there any doubt that that's what Joe Whitt was going to say? Like, Anthony, if I had told you, hey, we're going to play this, here's the title of or here's the question, what's Joe Whitt's answer? Was there any fiber of your being that thought it would be anything other than, nah, we're good, just keep winning?
No.
Here's the difference, though. Do you believe it? Do you actually believe him?
I think as a competitor deep down, he does want the team or the defense, I guess, because they still haven't had an interception through 5 games.
Right. No, there's things that he wants. But I think he wants the play. Like, I think what he said is true. I don't always think that coaches are like that. Like, this is what makes the staff special, and like Dan special and Kliff special and Joe, and like Anthony Lynn is just floating in the background. Guy's a former NFL head coach, and he's not getting nearly the credit that like Kliff is, because Kliff's the OC. Like, that's how it works. If Lynn gets elevated to the OC and they do the same stuff next year, like, it'll be the same deal. I would guess, by the way, Tavita Pritchard, if they went internally, would get it. But that's a different story. The point is, like, there's so many guys that contribute. There's quality control coaches whose names people have never heard of that are doing really important stuff. As long as you win, it don't matter. And as long as your unit's playing well, like, that's the thing for a coordinator. Like, if they're winning in spite of Joe Whitt's defense, he's going to be like, yeah, I'm happy we're winning, but like, this sucks. I gotta get better. And that's where he was the first couple of weeks of this winning streak. So I actually believe it with him that he is just about playing better ball and winning, as opposed to some people that are like, they want to do that for the attention, not for the winning. Mm-hmm. So salute to you, Joe Whitt Jr. You tell no lies, at least ones that we've been able to parse out yet. All right, Stop and Choke. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, actually, there's one of two things that we're going to do. And I need to talk to Anthony about which one we do. So stay tuned to figure out what we decide next. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we have chosen to give you a nice little treat. Yeah, that sounded very weird. I apologize. I'm sorry on principle. But I'm not sorry for what we're about to do for you, which is let you hear our interview from earlier in the show. Dyami Brown joined us off the top of the show today. And he was fantastic. And we realized that because it was at 4 o'clock, the chances that many of you listening now, as you drive home at 6:30, work a little bit later, probably didn't hear that. And while we would love for you to check out all of the show parts of the show that you missed on the podcast or whatever, this was good enough to bring it back a second time. So here's my chat earlier to open today's show with Commanders wide receiver, Dyami Brown.
Oh, man, for us, we always want to stay focused on the task that's at hand. We don't want to make anything too big of what's going on, so we don't want to hype ourselves up to psych us out of anything. We just want to stay focused and stay on that grind.
For sure. And I know it's always hard to be reflective in the middle of stuff, but I know you've put in a ton of work the past bunch of off seasons, something that you chronicled on YouTube. I did kind of chuckle. You did a bunch of episodes in certain off seasons. This season, you're just like, here's everything I did. I'm putting in an hour, one video, bang. As a content creator, lots of respect for that, Dyami, first of all. Second of all, to see the work pay off in a different way, because what's it been like for you to be more involved as a pass catcher? You've been a great blocker. You've done all this other stuff, great on special teams. But for that offensive part of your game to come through as a wide receiver, what's that meant to you so far this season?
Oh, man, it means a lot, just to be able to do the things that I do in order for us, to help us contribute to that win. I think a lot of times, things can get kind of frustrating or anything, but at the end of the day, I know the work that I put in, and then I know what I can do as far as the game goes as well. So for me, I just want to go out there and help the team do the best that we can do.
For a wide receiver who's asked to do a lot of dirty work, I don't have a better way to ask it other than how much easier is it when also you see the ball a little bit more to just stay engaged in the game? If you're playing pickup basketball and you're just like, hey, can I shoot it every once in a while? Like if you ask me to set screens, you can do all that kind of stuff. Not that you're not a great team guy, just does it make going to work a little bit more fun?
Oh, yeah, it definitely makes it fun. And I want everybody to do good. At the end of the day, for me, just to get those few touches, just to show what I can do, it means a lot for me, just to build a confidence thing as well. But I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of us can do good in this offense and with this team. So I think at the end of the day, all we have to do is continue to do what we do, and we turn out victorious.
Dyami Brown with us here on the Hoffman Show. I know DQ has talked about OZ as a guy in your room who is just an incredible cheerleader for everybody else. Obviously, he's been he's one of those guys who's helping you on the field as well. What's it been like to have Olamide specifically in the room and that veteran presence that he's brought and kind of the energy he brings to the offense and specifically the wide receiver room?
Oh, man, I love OZ, and he brings a lot of energy. It's like, man, he's almost like a bad little kid out there. Jump off the tree if he want to. but that's the energy that we need, because at the end of the day, any help that anybody can use, and as far as his game and the things that he can do, can come out the backfield or play a wide out, any small little detail things that all of us can add to our game can help, and it's very beneficial.
I was going to ask, is there a good example that you can give us, Dyami, a story about how one of the other receivers in the room, or maybe a guy like Zach out of the tight end room, has helped you? Because you all have some overlapping skill sets, but you all have kind of one thing that's a little bit different from everybody else, whether it's Luke, OZ, Terry, Noah, on down the list. Is there something that you've pulled from someone else's game that you could share with us?
Oh, man, I think with OZ, the run after catch is something that I definitely learned from him. It's kind of weird when those little slot guys they know how to move a little bit. Man, look, I want to move like that too. But things like that. Then with Terry, the professionalism that he has, it means a lot, and it's kind of good for me as well too, because you want to attack the day like that. At the end of the day, and it's different ways to get better. And you can learn from each and every guy that's in that room.
So I actually was very curious to ask you about this once we knew you were coming on, and I heard something that Dan said yesterday, which he said, you guys are working on breaking tackles, which to me it feels like something from the outside. It's like you either got it or you don't. Like some guys are really good at it. They know how to move. Right. They know how to shake. How do you, if you can share with us, how do you learn at the NFL level how to break tackles? I know that's such a simple question, but it's something that I never really thought about you guys drilling. It's just kind of like, hey, you drill the routes, you drill all this. How do you work on breaking tackles at the NFL level?
Man, I just think I want to say you're actually learning how to break a tackle. I just think you go through, you go through a different process of learning how to break tackles. I think it just when you see a defense pursue, it's like, okay, what can I do to make a guy miss? Can I use a stiff arm? Can I juke? Can I just stick or something like that? Things like that, because you're not just gonna be able to, okay, boom, I'm gonna just break this tackle right here. Nah, you have to go through that process, and you really have to do it every day, and it has to be like a mental thing, like a repetition thing.
So it's much more of like sharpening the skills every single day that you already have versus like we're going to teach you how to do whatever. And it's part like the pursuit angles and things like that. So it's kind of making something that feels very natural, technical in a way.
Right. Because then it all just depends on what you have in your bag. A lot of guys, I'm about to juke, or some guys like to run over. Some guys don't run people over, so they like to juke. It's different ways to break a tackle in this league.
And if you're a white tight end, you're morally obligated to try to leap over somebody once a year. Is that like to yank off and Zach? Yeah, one leap in the truck. That's it. that's the entire white tight end toolkit. Dyami Brown's with us here on the Hoffman Show. And for you have been really effective this year on some of the screens as a screen runner. Is that something that you've always felt that you are good at? Because it's something we haven't seen a ton from you. Or is that something that in this offense that you've learned how to do it and then they realize like, oh, this guy's good at this and they're giving you a few more of those opportunities?
Man, I think I haven't ran a screen in a long time. This year might have been like the first year I had a couple of screens, but for me it was just do what I can do with this opportunity that is given, and it wasn't learning how to run a screen. It was whatever. I don't care how I get this ball. If it has to be a screen, I'm gonna try to make something happen with it.
No, I hear you, man. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I did not ask you about your quarterback. Any wide receiver, we're always going to ask about the quarterback when he's the number 2 pick in the draft and playing as well as he is. You know the questions are coming. But it seems like everyone's pretty excited to talk about Jaden. When in the offseason did you know? Because, like, obviously people know you were at Carolina with Sam. Like, you've had good relationships with him and with some of the other quarterbacks here. So this is not meant to disparage any of those guys at all. But when in the offseason did you feel like, this cat's different? There's something about him that I have not seen before since I've been in Washington.
Man, the first couple of days of practice, and you saw us early on, and his poise and his confidence early on, and things like that. It kind of like as a rookie, you don't really see it from many quarterbacks just because of the learning aspect. They trying to learn and make sure that they can get everything down, or they don't want to make any mistakes. But for him, he just came out relaxed, and he just was being him. And the first couple of days, I just knew it. And I had said it from the beginning, like, man, we're going to be a good team with this guy.
And so far, so good. 4-1. Last minute here with Dyami Brown on the Hoffman Show. Kliff, we've obviously heard a lot about him and his coaching style and the walkthroughs and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious how different it's been for you with Bobby this year, because he was here last year. Your receiver coach, Bobby Ingram, for the audience who may not know who I'm talking about. What's been different for Bobby this year under Kliff compared to being under Bobby in a different system, in a different organization last year?
I'll say Bobby as a person, he's really been the same. He's always been, honest with us and everything. He's been helping us develop. So he'll, put us through things that we would need, like for the game plan and stuff like that. But I think this year, the biggest difference is just having that time to connect with us a little bit more, as far as like how meetings and stuff was going. Like last year, we walked through, but we didn't have too many walkthroughs and stuff like that. And then we didn't have too much meeting time separate. So I think that would be the biggest difference, just him connecting with us and being able to talk and, really learn from him, since he's been in the game, he's been in this league for a long time. So just him being able to, connect with us a little bit more, I think that's the biggest difference.
For sure. And speaking of meetings, you got to run to some. Really appreciate the time, Dyami, and let's do it again later on in the season. Best of luck this weekend.
All right. Thank you.
All right, that was Dyami Brown with us off the top of the show today. That's why you can't miss a minute. You never know. You might miss Commanders player. You might miss great analysts. You might miss something silly that Anthony does.
Something I do?
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah. Don't pretend like you're on the. Yeah, eat your popcorn. You're so close to eating your popcorn without getting the board all messy.
So I was eating the popcorn. You know how you like peel the bag open like angle it with at a corner. Or
Uh-huh.
I guess
And
at an
then
angle.
you're going that way, so
Yeah,
you
and then you
just
just-
shovel it in your face.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I would show the audience, but I'd rather not.
it's probably smart. Save that. Some things are not meant to be on camera.
Precisely.
And moving on. Coming up next, quick preview of the WNBA Finals that kick off tonight. And big show announcement of a big guest tomorrow. Yes, and what else, Anthony? And we have to pick Thursday Night Football.
There it is.
All right, all that. Man, a lot of show, not a lot of time left. Don't go anywhere, as they say. All right, we have a lot to do and like 6 minutes to do it. Last little bit of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We stream live on YouTube as well. We didn't mention this during Never Read the Comments, Anthony, but I almost pulled this one. I will self-congratulate. We have people that are very happy that we do stream live on YouTube on top of all the places because they live internationally. And the Odyssey app is amazing nationwide. It does not travel to – it doesn't have its passport, if you will. And so there's people that used to live in the U.S., and we got a comment from one, used to live in the U.S., loves the show, and then couldn't listen anymore. And then because they moved overseas, and then we popped up on YouTube, and they're like, oh, my God, the show. So we're here for everyone all around the world.
Yes, sir. Global.
As far as I know, we're not banned anywhere, which is nice. All right. So that's that. That's where we are. That's who we are. I've now wasted a minute of our precious time. Let's get on to it. Anthony, do we pick Thursday Night Football or do the big show announcement first? I don't even know if you know about the show announcement. You kind of do.
Do I?
Yeah, you do. It's been confirmed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock, John Kine. Pew, 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 pew. No, it's okay. The air horns on a guest, those are reserved for Mitchell.
Okay. That's fair.
I don't know what kind of music John gets, but John Kine, the one, the only. He is with us tomorrow, 5 o'clock for Not My Beat. It is his beat, and it has been his beat for 30 years. Not quite 30. You're not that old, John. But we're getting close. It's been like 27.
That's okay. I'm gonna tell him.
He'll be like, yeah, well,
It's been 27.
It's something like that. It might actually be 30. It might actually be 30 because it's 20. I think he started in 94.
Oh, yep.
So it might be 30.
That predates me.
Has John been on the beat longer than you've been alive?
Yes, Craig. I was born in 96.
You were born in 96?
Yes. We are millennials. You and I.
Yeah, we are.
We're part of the same generation, but barely.
Barely. Wow. That's a tough hit for Cakes. He looks great, though.
Yes.
He does. Still agile.
Uh-huh.
See him with the quickness sometimes in training camp.
Yes, sir.
When he goes and tries to poke you on one shoulder and then run around because he's still a kid at heart.
We all are.
Old John Kime. Young John Kime. The point is, John's with us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Okay. That's that. That's the show announcement. Thursday Night Football. 49ers, Seahawks. Who you got?
Who do you got?
The 49ers.
I got the 49ers, too.
Is that because I picked the 49ers?
I think so. Nah, I'm going with the 49ers. I just think that eventually they will find their groove.
I agree. There's a simpler explanation for this. The Seattle Seahawks played 2 football games in like 6 days, and now they're on to number 3 in like 9.
Yeah.
So the 49ers, yeah, it's Thursday night. That's tough. It's tougher when you went Monday, Sunday, Thursday. So I'm gonna take the 49ers on that. Although there's a chance that George Kittle doesn't play, which definitely hurts.
Reek Woolen isn't playing.
Yeah, that's not new.
Byron Murphy's not playing either.
Are the inactives out? Now you got it official? Is that what just happened?
Yep.
Can you see if Kittle's playing?
They only put out the Seahawks right now.
Okay. Well, that's typically not how that works, but I guess the 49ers do have a few more minutes, I guess. Anyway, so that's the, either way, I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers tonight. Anthony is also on the 49ers. We'll see how he did, and we'll pick the rest of the games tomorrow. Last but not least, before real things, if we even have time for real things, WNBA Finals. Speaking of predictions, we got to make it for the series, Anthony. I am taking the New York Liberty in 5 games over the Minnesota Lynx. There's so much to like about the Lynx. Nafisa Collier's having an outstanding year. But I do think that Jonquel Jones is the difference maker in the series, the center for New York, who has been such a huge factor for them this year. And if you look at the numbers this year, even though Minnesota won the season series and won the Commissioner's Cup, Breanna Stewart went bananas against them. And part of it is because Jonquel pulls their rebounders away from the rim, and Stewie had like a 38-18 game and like a 17-17 game. And I think the rest of New York I think she can do that again, and the rest of New York will show up.
Forgot to turn my mic on.
It helps for radio.
Good gracious, 38. I did see
they
those
lost
numbers.
that game, by the way, where she had 38 and 18. But I think like Sabrina and others will show up, and Jonquel.
I think that's the difference for the Liberty in the postseason. Sabrina has shown up,
She's
man.
been a dog.
She is putting up some crazy scoring numbers because I think during the season, she was scoring, but like she wasn't dropping 30 and 6. Like she was more so just being a facilitator. But I think if she can be as aggressive as she's been in the playoffs, I think that presents a huge problem for the Lynx. However,
However,
I think I'm with you, Craig. I think the series against the Connecticut Sun has prepared the Lynx for whatever. Because, again, the Connecticut Sun, most physical team in the league. And
True.
It's not only that, they were able to get past their physicality, they were still scoring effectively. And Nafisa, she's just a problem. I don't think they have anybody that's going to guard her.
I think you have to put Stewie on her. Like, I think the one person who is built to be as mobile, as long as everything is versatile is Nafisa Collier. The only other player in the league who is in her class in terms of well-roundedness to their game, although Asia Wilson's like hitting threes off pin downs now. But like Asia's better than both of them. But the two next best players and the only two comparable players from skill set, size, length, everything are Stewie and Collier. And so I think you put Stewie on her and you see what happens. And I don't think that Minnesota has an answer for John Quill. And the Courtney Williams-Sabrina Ionescu matchup is huge. Courtney's quick. Mm-hmm. She can put a lot of pressure on you. She's going to make Sabrina guard, but Sabrina is like, she's got some size. Yeah. So whether it's as a post player and backing her down, whether it's, as an offensive rebounder, I think is a huge thing. So that's kind of the stat that I'm looking for is like how many second possessions does New York get in this series? So that starts tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN. I got New York in 5. You have?
I have the Lynx.
Minnesota in?
5.
Okay.
So you have New York.
Yes, I have New York.
And I have the Lynx.
You do.
56-30.
That means that our show is over right now.